Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel. It's the second one we host here at the South Summit. First, I just want to do a very quick introduction about what is FACE, and I'll get right to our amazing powerhouse of investors that we have with us here today. So there's a very disturbing number, which is 39.1. 39.1 is the percentage of aspiring entrepreneurs in Europe that want to start up but won't because of fear of failure. And it's the highest number in the world. And what happens, what this means is that there are a lot of people that see a possibility to start up and that see an option to have a business, but don't do it because fear of failure is stopping them. So FACE Entrepreneurship has a study that has brought to light what is stopping everyone. What are those fears? Financial, social, career. And what we do is, through the experience that we're going to hear today, we try to tell you that you're not alone if you're feeling a bit scared. You're not alone if you have doubts with your business or where you're going. And that it's perfectly normal to face these things head on and to actually become a better entrepreneur once you've overcome them. So I want to introduce you, Vincent Rosso, who's an angel investor, who's also, you might know him, he's also a co-founder of Blanca. We have Anne Ravanona, who is coming all the way from Ireland. She's based in Paris, and she's the founder of Global Investor. And Hussein Kanji, who is also an investor, a VC, from Hoxton, I always say it wrong, Hoxton Ventures. So today, I was talking to them, and I said, you know what, guys, I really want you to share your personal stories of where you failed and where that failure has brought you today. And they all have very interesting stories about that particular moment that they faced the challenge and how they overcome them. But then I also asked them to be ready with tips, something that, that can really help you in your projects if you're starting up now. And I also just want to say that if at any point you guys want to share a story, if you want to ask a question, this is for you guys. So be ready to ask, and you can interrupt us. Just raise your hand, and we will get to your question. So I don't know which one of you wants to start first and to share your story. Who's up for it? You're going to start since you're next to me? Go ahead, Vincent.
Well, in terms of failure, by experience today, I don't see any failure just as a big one, because what you actually learn from that is much powerful than really about the failure itself. Before starting in Spain, BlaBlaCar, actually I started 2 business, and I don't consider I made a failure, because I was actually able to stop those business at right time, because I actually understood that I learned something, and I got to a limit of myself. It has to be, I think that the things that you do or we do are always going along with how we are feeling, how we are prepared to face those new challenges. And me as a person 10 years ago, I was not ready to face many things I'm ready to face today. We can call that experience, and we can call that failure, because you got to learn a lot of experience based on failure and based on success as well. But I think that a 25-year-old person might see a failure, that kind of thing is a big failure, and I might see that kind of big things as a small failure. Just the way emotionally, how you handle the situation and how you respond to it. At the end of the day, just a question of managing the expectation, managing how you want to live that, and what kind of experience and knowledge you want to get out of it. And that would be my story.
Great story. I think, Anna, here you would want maybe what we were talking about, mistakes, and about how sometimes there's a lot of little failures. We don't always have to talk about a big one that kind of ruins, but it's also very important to celebrate the little success that we have along the way. And this is where, what you were talking to me about before, about mistake, the miss and take, and I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, so first of all, I would say that, there's no such thing as failure. I think we learn. We do something, we try, and we learn. We get a message back, and then we say, okay, how do we need to readjust for the next time? And if we look at the word mistake, it's like we missed something, we got to take a new direction. Okay, so a mistake is something where we've got to miss and say, hey, you got to come back and learn something here. You haven't quite got that right. And I think in my personal experience, so I have a tech-enabled company. So we have an online platform to help women entrepreneurs learn about funding in a safe place so they become investor ready. And my challenge is I'm a non-tech founder. I didn't know anything about the tech side of things. And so a year ago, when it came to choosing technical partners to work with, I didn't make a good decision because I hadn't done my homework. I was very scared. I was caught up in my own fear. And I realized 10 months into the project that I hadn't chosen the right people. It wasn't necessarily their fault. It's just that I hadn't done my homework. I didn't check with other people who'd worked with them whether they were the right fit for me. I didn't check if the technology that I had chosen to do with them was really going to work for me now and moving forward. I made a lot of mistakes, and it was painful. I lost about 7 to 10 months of my time as an entrepreneur, and money, quite a lot of money, because when you're early stage, you don't have a lot of money. And what I learned from that is this, is that like when you're looking for investors, you have to do your homework. I didn't do my homework, so it was my mistake. I missed that turn, I had to take a new path, and the new path was that I had to do my homework. So when I chose my new technical partners, because you'll see our product coming out soon, next month, so check it out. When I found the new technical founders, I did my homework. I went on a coding course. I went to find out so at least I could understand, the basics of coding. I'm not going to become a developer, but I did some training myself. Then I also, I checked out previous customers of that firm, and I asked 3 people they recommended and 1 person they hadn't. So I did my due diligence, and I checked out what they were like. And I asked key questions to each customer that they had. I was asking them, what are they like to work for and work with? How well do they communicate? How good is the product, and would you recommend them? So all those good things that we know, I knew all these things. I didn't do them. Why? Because I was scared. I wasn't a techie. I was really scared, and my fear got over with me. So what I learned from that is do your homework, don't be scared. Face your fear and do it anyway. There's a very famous book by Susan Jeffers. It's very true, though. So when you make a mistake, learn from it and move on. Do your homework, but do it diligently, and then you go in bringing all that learning. So now I can have not only a good conversation with my techies, I challenge them, and they're like, ooh, sugar, okay, I better read my homework. So, these are stepping stones on your path as an entrepreneur. If you're not making mistakes, and if you're not failing, you're not learning, and you're not growing.
I think we can all relate to that. We've all gone in a bit blinded sometimes. And I think this plays really well off to you, Hussein, with what happened when you started your fund and making sure that you did the first right investments. And maybe they weren't that good. Please, that story is amazing.
I think it's very easy to try and shoot for perfect every single time, and that usually the enemy of success is actually shooting for perfection, because you then don't give yourself a chance to actually fail. Our very first investment in the fund, the founder called us up about a year later and said, I've just been diagnosed with a mental disorder, and he wasn't able to come to work for the next 6 months. So that investment kind of went sideways. Our third investment, the founder didn't do very well, and that company actually ended up going bankrupt. And for a young fund that's a brand new vehicle, having 2 things that kind of go sideways in the early days is, it could actually cripple you, right? Because you then get very paralyzed and you don't want to actually do anything. Our fourth investment was Deliveroo, which turned out to become a $1 billion company. And you can't have these things stop you, right? All you can do is learn from them and move on to the next thing. And since then, we've had a number of really good investments in the fund. So, all of these things are just learning lessons. And half the time, they're just parts of life, right? You can't predict them. A lot of our industry is very, very unpredictable. And so you just have to be a participant and be very quick at learning versus actually trying to shoot for something perfect and then not actually participate.
How painful was it on a scale of 1 to 10, those first failures? How painful was that for you personally?
Third one was the most, the most, right? Because we had to go back to our investors and say, look, we just wrote a $2 million check 6 months ago, and the $2 million is gone. And on top of that, we're gonna buy the company back out of bankruptcy. We're going to put our own people in the company, and then we're going to fix the company and spend another $250,000 doing that. And trust us, we're not crazy. This is actually a really good company. It just happens to have been very poorly run. I would say of our investor base, and all of them are supportive, and we're a 10-year fund, and they believe in us, et cetera. But probably a good third of them thought that we were pretty crazy. And while they're patient and supportive, you could get into the situation where they would then start questioning everything. So we were very afraid that if things didn't go according to plan for us, it would get harder and harder to go back to our investors. It all worked out.
I want to take the chance also to talk about, since we have 3 investors, about the gender bias. I want to get it out there. It turns out, Anna, you told me about a study that showed that 2 projects the same exact projects that were given to 2 groups of investors. One of them had a women voiceover, so the project had a woman, voice to it, and the other project, exactly the same, had a men's voice. Well, apparently the men voice one got twice as much investment just because it had a men's voice. So there is a gender bias, and I want to ask here our male investors, how, in your portfolio, are there women, do you invest in women? Do you feel you have that bias? What is your ratio, men to women? And do you think that women's intuition does come to play when you're working with women?
Absolutely. In my personal cases, I really appreciate when a business is run by a woman. I actually have 2 investments out of 8 that are actually run by women, and that works really well. And I feel really confident in the fact that they're actually handling the business themselves, and it is in the future, in terms of if I had to prefer women or men, I don't really think of that this way, but because I really choose the person. It could be just because it's a woman, it's going to be better than a man, or on the other side away. But I really appreciate the fact that the woman is actually sometimes they are mother as well. So it's mother plus startupper, and it means for me they are doing it something incredible. Though basically I know they have the resources, and I can actually hand over that situation from a different angle, different perspective, managing risk from a different point of view, and I really appreciate that too. It's a really as good, or even sometimes even more, much better than men. Yeah.
I think, Anne, you will be able to bring actually the exact number. I don't know if it was 35% when it was a...
So yeah, there's a Kaufman Foundation, they did a survey, they did a study where it showed that women-led tech companies had 35% higher return on investment and 12% higher revenue than male-led tech companies.
I'm seeing
so
your
guys,
face, Hussein.
why aren't you investing in more women? It's kind of crazy. Now we're getting more stats, and now I was just saying it to a gentleman in the speaker room earlier. It's really cool because Shark Tank. Does anybody here watch Shark Tank on the pitch competition in the US? And in the UK we've got Dragon's Den. Well, in the US Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary. He's a harsh shark. Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful actually looked at all his investments he made on Shark Tank, and he realized that he made the most money when they were all women-led businesses. So now he wants to invest more in women, and he actually went public with that statement. He was in the Huffington Post earlier this year, and he's actually a keynote speaker at Women Entrepreneurship Day at the UN on the 18th of November. So Mr. Wonderful is putting his money where his mouth is. I think we need a lot more people. I know Dave McClure yesterday, he really does invest in women. So out of the 1,000 startups they've invested in, at least 150 have women CEOs on them, and that's growing. And I mentioned him in my TEDx talk, and I said, he literally says, I'm investing in the biggest untapped markets, namely women and minorities. He says, I'm delighted because I'm going to make loads of money, and you guys, you're aside because you're not watching this, you're not seeing this.
What's your take on this?
So-
How many women do you have?
So there was a time at the very beginning when we looked at our angel investment portfolio as well as the fund portfolio. We were about 40% women founders, which is really high, right? We're almost 50, not quite, almost 50. But since then, unfortunately, just because we don't make the distinction, we've had many more male entrepreneurs in the fund. So I think we're down to like the 20s now. So we're not in the same. But our best performing company next to Deliveroo is a company called Darktrace, and it's run by a woman. So, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I think the bigger problem or the bigger challenge is there are not enough women who are entering the industry, not enough women who are starting up businesses, and then not enough women who are kind of going up to lead these organizations.
Exactly. This is also, what we were talking about. We're not saying just because I'm a woman, you should hire me or I'm smart or anything. We just want the same opportunities. And that the fact is we still don't get the same opportunities. And that's why women aren't, entering the tech world and women aren't as big a player. And I think there's a trend of more women going in. I've met much more women founder, so.
One of the other big problems is that while there are more women founders and entrepreneurs and executives now, there still aren't that many women investors. So especially in Europe. If you look across the venture firms in Europe,
Put them on your hands.
Exactly,
You
it's
really
tiny.
can. It's crazy. So there is the figure, do you know what percentage of new businesses around the world are set up by women? If you give us a guess, what percent would you say? 9? 5%?
15
No, a bit more.
or 50?
Higher.
High. 50.
It's actually, a lot of small businesses, but actually, if we look at government statistics across the world, 30% of new businesses in every country across the world, most countries, are started by women. But isn't that funny? It doesn't change. Around the world, it gets stuck at 30%. It's like women being represented in films. In a crowd scene, if you watch a crowd scene in any film, 18% of the women of the crowd are women when we are 50% of the population. So there's a funny thing how if you don't see it, you can't believe it. So we need to have more role models. It's very important to have more women role models. And a big problem, as you mentioned, Hussein, is we don't have enough women investors. We've only about 7% of venture capitalists are women, and only about 15%, 15 to 20% of business angels are women. So what I mean is when you're pitching, you're going to be pitching mainly to guys. And what happens is that we all have a bias, we all have a pair of glasses, and we tend to invest in what we feel comfortable with and what we understand, what we know. If you look different, if you sound different, if you do things differently to me, I may be less inclined to invest in you. So it's an issue.
It's an issue. Among the fears that we've discovered, the biggest one is financial, career, social, and then there's one that's called, it's related with the self-esteem. It's when you feel like you want to start up, but you don't know if you're going to be able to because you don't know if you have all the capabilities, all the knowledge. And I don't know if all of you, it's something that affects a lot of women because we are very much we missed the girl power train and we're not quite on it. And I want to know if any of you at one point when you started, was there something that you thought, I'm really lacking in this area, which I'm sure there was because we have to wear many hats as an entrepreneur, but you can't wear all of them. And then how do you fight that fear? Anna, you went and got coding courses, but then the team, I'm guessing, is very important to be able to bring in key players to your startup. But how do you get it? We always say, I was talking to you, Hussein, and it was like, everybody said, go get a co-founder, they'll help you. How do you bring a co-founder into a startup if you don't have the money, if you don't have the perks? How do you convince people to be part of your project? I don't know, Vincent, if you can shed a light.
Well, it's a really good point, and I'm actually going through this process right now, and actually with a woman. And I'm really happy with that because I'm learning a lot. I made the failures as well because it's something you don't always know how to handle and interact and what actually to propose. But based on my experience on BlaBlaCar, it was key for me to actually invest all my time mainly on a team because the team is a certain extent the image of the service of the you're gonna give to your customers. So the better you treat your team, or the better the team feels good with you, or with the subject you actually have in hand, the better they're going to perform, and the better the customer will value that.
Okay.
So in my team in BlaBlaCar, we have more women than men, and I was really, really happy with that too, because we got a really good feedback in terms of sensitivity that probably men wouldn't have in a subject, such sensitive subjects as BlaBlaCar, ride sharing, strangers in the same car. That's something that half of our customers are women, and probably they are facing more fear than men to jump into somebody else's car. So I couldn't actually sell that product if it had to go through the voice or the mind of a man, and this is why the team of female team was really necessary here to actually embrace and give and deliver the message that was actually convincing and good.
But how do you convince someone if you're starting? If anybody starting up and they're trying to look for a co-founder, how do you convince someone to join you on your journey?
Yeah.
What's the magic trick to get someone?
I don't have any clue here. It's just like about you. It might be a good mood in these days. Sometimes you do it better. Sometimes you don't do it better. It's based on persons. Try to sell a dream, sell a vision, give them that there's a lot of learning actually to there. There's a lot of things you don't know, and you don't pretend to know, but you want to learn with them. So that's something as well that I think honesty is part of the thing that is the bottom line to create that engagement.
It's hard to recruit someone, right? So you're either going to recruit someone in the early days. You're not going to have money, right? Because that's the one resource that startups don't have tons of. So it's either the vision, it's either your charisma, or your kind of strength of character, or it's your persuasiveness. And it's interesting. Almost all the really good entrepreneurs are usually able to convince people who are much more accomplished, much smarter than themselves, to quit their jobs and to come kind of join them, right? So there's something either very powerful about the person, or there's something very powerful about the idea that convinces people to join them.
That's great. Does anybody have a question? Does anybody want to ask? Are you all very shy? Yes? Do we have a microphone or something? Because I don't know if... Okay. Oh, there you go. There's a mic.
I have a question. I'm starting my startup. I've been doing it for about almost 2 years. My team is 11 people, and we're trying to make that next financial jump as well. What do you say for entrepreneurs like me? I'm from Miami. I've come here to seek venture capital. What do you say for us going to other countries? And then also within our own country, what's the best step to take? So I do have people that are willing to quit their jobs. They want to go on and move to the next stage, but I don't have the capital to make that happen. Okay.
Well, I think it's really hard to raise money from where you're not from, right? So coming across to Europe and raising money when you're based in Miami is probably tough, right? Because the natural investor question is going to be, why doesn't the community around you fund you? So why are you coming to another part of the world to raise money? Now, there may not be enough money in Miami, but there's tons of money in New York, right? And there's tons of money in California. So I think it's going and engaging with the community there. And generally, the best practice for investors is to engage through references, is people who would know the investors and who know you and kind of actively can warrant that you're actually a really good guy.
And be clear about what kind of investor you want for the stage that you're at. I think that's really, really important. So do your due diligence. If you don't know somebody to give you a warm introduction, check out if you've identified a particular VC firm or seed stage firm, check out some of those partners. Look at the companies in the portfolio and look up the CEO and ring up the CEO and say, what are they like? Oh yeah, because entrepreneurs, and actually when I interview a lot of investors and I say, guys, what should women entrepreneurs be doing? And they say to me, we expect you to do that. We're doing due diligence on you. You should be doing due diligence on us. What are we like as an investor to have on board? What are our quirks? What's it like to work with us? How do we handle it when things get tough? All those things. So don't be scared. You're an entrepreneur. You're doing this for 2 years. So start looking at if there's a particular firm you're interested in, check out the companies they've already invested in and call the CEOs. Because as some investors say to me, why don't you do that? I will take a call if one of my CEOs in my portfolio says you should talk to him. I will take it because I know my CEO guy. So it's another way if you don't have a direct warm intro. It's a cool tip.
Very cool.
Basically the same thing, and I would say that an investor is a teammate, is one more person in your team. So don't see them as only the money man. They have much more to share with you than the money, and they will share also the pain and the success. So see them as a teammate.
Nice. In my TEDx talk, I call a lot of entrepreneurs see investors like checkbooks on legs, and they're not checkbooks on legs. They bring a lot more. So you have to be respectful. Seeing them as peers and partners is really important, and it changes the dynamics. Instead of being scared going into that meeting, I'm talking to God. No, I'm talking to Hussein, and Hussein could be a super partner for our business, and we're in this on this journey together, all with Vincent. So, got some good advice there.
Anybody else have another question? Don't be shy. This is a great opportunity. No? Do you guys want to give a final, we have 5 minutes, so we have 3 minutes, so 1 minute each, elevator pitch time. What's your final advice for aspiring, even people that are already started and are looking for that final motivation?
I'd like to say something really that I learned from Babacar, and as an experience as well, is about how to control the fear. And I got to the point that if you have fears, we all have fears everywhere, every time to take decisions, or bad decisions, or good decisions, probably not, but bad decisions. But we have fear to handle situations and to think about the future. And what if something happened? What if somebody doesn't call or whatever? But the thing is, like, I learned something that is actually a really good tip is only fear for the things you can control, because the rest of the thing is not in your power of controlling, or you cannot do anything for that. Why should you have fear or feel fear for it? So that will actually save a lot of energy, save a lot of nightmares, and focus you on what you have to do and not what is likely to happen, which is not under your control. And as an entrepreneur, I found these tips just really useful because it helps you to simplify your life, that you still need to have a life anyway. Okay?
I would say acknowledge when that fear comes, it's like this animal that takes over. And when it comes, you need to kind of acknowledge that fear. And when it starts to get really, really hard, go and talk to somebody. Talk to another founder, because I can tell you they've been through it. And when you're honest and you say, God, Vincent, this is really hard. Hussein, I'm trying to hire this person. It's not working out. I'm racking my brain. What can I do? And when you come to the depths of despair, reach out to your fellow entrepreneurs. Do it. Don't be afraid. And I would say take down the mask, because it's an amazingly powerful thing when you are vulnerable, when you're your true self. And that's when the universe starts to give you. When you really, instead of showing this strong exterior all the time, there are times when it's okay to be vulnerable. So take off the mask and ask for help. I think that's very important. And my special messages to the women entrepreneurs, there always are, if you're deciding whether or not to go for it, just do it, okay? Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Think big. And above all, ask for more money. Most important thing.
So, I think echoing the same points, I think a lot of learning is either asking other people for their learning and then building on that, and there's a lot of learning that's just experiential that you just have to do yourself. And I think part of learning that way is that you do make mistakes, and the only thing is to dust yourself off and come right back up. And usually if you do make a mistake, recognize that you make the mistake fast. Don't try and put it under the rug and ignore it, because it usually doesn't get any better. So if you're going to fail, it's just part of nature. Fail fast and then readjust. And a lot of business, especially in our industry, in the tech industry, is there are no real easy answers, and there's no perfect answer. So sometimes you just try something, you actually don't do as great a job as you thought you did, you shut it down and you go on, move on to the next thing and try and readjust. And a lot of that adjustment, doing that very fast, is usually how you actually create a lot of value.
So this is it for us, and I just want to ask for a great round of applause for our speakers. I hope you guys got inspired, got some few good tips, and are ready to move on the journey. Thank you very much for joining us, you guys, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, another round of applause. Thank you, Face Entrepreneurship, for this.